Hello everyone and welcome to Jump Up Supercast, the only podcast on the internet where we're selling Gamer Boy bathwater for $120 a pop. I'm Will, and joining me this week, Brandon.
And if you pay an extra $5, and well, I'll give you free shipping first of all. Second of all, if you pay an extra $5, I'll include a little bit of Gamer Boy sweat in there for you.
Ills.
I don't condone any of this. Don't at me.
And Noah.
I can't swim. No bath for me.
No. The idea of drowning in a bathtub is a tragic thing.
What are you talking about, lady? This bathtub is too
Oh, very good. Thank you for that. And hey, look who's back. It's Noah.
It's me.
You're not hearing this on July 4th, but America's birthday has allowed our good friend Noah to return for an episode of the Jump Up Supercast.
Well, thank you, America. Let's all thank America.
Great job,
America.
George Washington. Besides, of course, celebrating this nation's birth and eventual death, how's everyone else doing this week?
Doing good, man, I guess.
That's a good dark turn.
I'm not working
I know.
today, you know?
We take it. Anyone grill?
Not today.
bit.
Over the weekend we will.
Oh.
Going
A little bit of delayed
camping
grilling.
for the weekend, so I'm going to be grilling up some food.
Oh my goodness. How exciting. Well, you know what else is exciting? Not video game news, because it's still the post-E3 doldrums. But we're going to make it work, baby. So
playing video games, that's all that matters.
Yes, and that is true. It is a good time. Mario Maker 2's out, having a great time with that. We'll talk about some games you might want to play later on. But you know who we haven't had a lot of conversations about recently? Our good friend Marcus Sony, the guy who makes PlayStations. He's been busy, obviously, not being at E3. We've talked about Nintendo and Microsoft at length, but Sony's decided to stay quiet. By and large, but we have a couple of rumors, but I want to sort of use those to launch off to talk about larger things about the future of the PlayStation and PS5 and everything else. So early last week, we had Sony outright saying, "Hey, we're looking towards first-party acquisitions in the near and future," which is, of course. We've talked about first-party acquisitions by Microsoft a lot on this podcast, right? Mm-hmm. Ninja Theory, Obsidian, a bunch of other ones. So, Sony going at it is probably not surprising. They've had a real focus on first-party this generation, especially in the later half with stuff like God of War and Spider-Man and Horizon, and even Days Gone all doing well. So, the name, though, that's now being floated around, in sort of an almost inverse image of Ninja Theory, is Remedy, who you may know as the people that made the first couple Max Payne games. They made Alan Wake, and they made Quantum Break for the Xbox One this generation. And right now they're making Control, which is coming out in like a month at this point. Yeah. So, I mean, do any of you guys have any history with any of those games that you like?
Yeah,
I've played
to
Max
company?
Payne.
Yeah,
I loved those games.
Yeah.
The Max Payne games are pretty good.
Yeah, Max Payne is good. I played Alan Wake and Quantum Break as well, so I really liked Alan Wake a lot. It was really
yeah,
cool.
I've heard really random things about Alan Wake. I always was interested in trying it.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool game. I mean, if you're interested in it, if you have a way to play it, I would. It's fun.
Yeah. And I mean, and if you sort of look, like, they tend to have like narrative-based shooters with sort of like a gimmick of sorts, right? Max
like
Payne had the slow-mo.
Combat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in that way, I think that if you sort of look at the types of games that they make, I think that they do sort of, you can see them fitting into Sony's general type of games they make pretty well. It seems like a decent fit. Mm-hmm. But the thing I think is interesting is that, as I said, Quantum Break, all but very quietly, was a problem, right? There was, if you remember, when this generation first launched, Microsoft had that big initiative. We're going to have a Halo TV show. We're going to have essentially a TV network that is branded with Xbox, right? And part of that was going to have the Quantum Break was going to have a TV show that was going to happen concurrently with the game. Like, you would see a live action cutscene essentially like a 30-minute TV show. Then it would cut back to the game, then cut back to the TV show. That got scrapped. And apparently that was entirely a Microsoft thing coming in and saying, hey, do this. And Remedy being like, okay. Sort of an inverse of how there was a lot of similar issues that Sony did intervening in Ninja Theory's games. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting that both of these companies are ones that have been very loud and vocal about like, hey, we really value being independent. And then like, it's cool to be independent until suddenly you have a game that kind of flops and you're like, maybe we need someone to help fund our games. And then suddenly you're willing to be first party again, right? But I think
that's such a stupid concept to fucking tie a TV show to a video game. Like, you can't even fucking think about it. It's kind of ridiculous. I hate when they do this. Like, they stretch a any kind of product into multiple platforms. Oh man, just fucking focus on trying to make one right. Well, why are you like? It's good to be ambitious, but why? Why are you putting so much pressure on this one thing? And if one part fucks up, it fucks up the whole franchise.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and that was sort of the problem was that I would say more the old guard of Microsoft, the ones that were like, well, at the end of the 360 generation, they were known for meddling a lot, right? Like the same that we heard that with Scalebound 2, that Microsoft says you need to put in multiplayer, you need to do this thing, right? Famously, the what's the game? The Phantom Dust. They didn't know that there was going to be multiplayer in the game until Don Matrick gave an interview saying, hey, there's going to be multiplayer. And they're like, we didn't know that. And so they've sort of, I mean, part of the Phil Spencer era behind the scenes has been them trying to go to developers and say, no, this is not like that was. We're trying to be autonomous, right? And so I think that like, obviously we're talking about Microsoft here, but I think that it's always interesting whenever a company, especially like Remedy, that's known for having sort of trying new things a lot, right? Like they very rarely repeat making sequels to their games, is brought into
Max Payne
a first
1 and
party.
2, they didn't even work on 3, so.
Yeah, that was just purely Rockstar.
Yeah.
That like how these people will be brought into the company culture and like will they lose their identity or not is always an interesting question to me.
Mm-hmm. And this is all rumor too. There's no
there's no guarantee of this, right? But I mean, even if it's not Remedy, there will be other things because Sony has said themselves that there's going to be, right? So this is, like I said, a hypothetical, but I think it is interesting because it does tie into a Wall Street Journal article that was published. The Wall Street Journal, hard to find someone that is, they generally get stuff right. They're a publication. And I'll just read some direct stuff about Sony's plans for the PS5 and their developer relations, right? So I'll just read directly from the article. Sony sees Microsoft as its main competitor in the next generation, with Google as a potential threat in mid to long term as internet technology advances. However, they do not view Nintendo or the Switch as direct competitors, for they view the Switch to be offering a different experience than the platform they have. And then this is the thing that I think is more interesting. Sony is concentrating its attention on large software publishers as it gets ready for the next PlayStation, according to executives. In general, they want their games on multiple platforms to maximize sales, while console makers look to make deals for exclusive content or an initial period of exclusive sales. While Sony still welcomes games from independent studios, the first official said, the emphasis is on strengthening relations with large publishers such as Bethesda or Activision, since resources are limited. The thinking is, the official said, that people buy a console to play high-quality games available only on that platform, not smaller games also available on smartphones. Right?
So they're trying to hog all the good, like, big publishers, basically.
Yeah, I mean, they're the guys with the big stack right now. They're the ones that have, the most consoles and is the market leader. So I guess that's their thought, is like, we're going to do that by, trying to get the Call of Duty exclusivity deal, right? Or something like that. Unless, but that is a big shift from, I would say, how the PS4 launched, right?
Man, it's sad. Yeah, I mean, it's sad to see, like, Microsoft is opening their arms, trying to, like, close deals with being buddies with Nintendo, and, like, of course they got like a bunch of like small indie teams that like to get like developing on first party games, but like Sony's just doing the opposite and just trying to like hog everything from what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, I mean they're looking to go bigger and bigger, right? Is the idea?
Aren't they kind of doing the same thing?
In what way?
like they're just gobbling up studios, right?
Well, no,
Well,
I mean, this
well,
was
No, with Microsoft, they would take in the small guys though and like help them build up.
And,
you know
and
what I mean?
Microsoft also, you got to remember, these aren't going to be tied to just Xbox. They're going to be tied to.
I
PC
get that. Yeah, I
Mhm.
get that critique. I'm just talking about consuming the studios, like
Yeah,
trying to buy
a
up the
little
studios.
bit.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say
It's
they're
similar.
not. I don't like. They're not planning on buying Bethesda, right? Or they're not planning on like because the two people that get name dropped, like I said, was Activision, Bethesda, and then later on Rockstar, right? Those aren't the people that like they're not going to buy them, but these are the companies that put out games that sell more than 10 million units in a year, right? Like, so they're basically, they're saying, hey, for us, the idea is that there's a lot of value in getting these marketing deals where at the end of a Red Dead 2 trailer, you get the PlayStation logo, right? Stuff
Right.
like that.
Or like
Which-
Grand Theft Auto 6 or something.
Yeah.
Like, or have
And-
some sort of DLC for it first, like they do
Yeah.
with Call of Duty.
But I think it is interesting. I mean, this is a personal point of just annoyance. The phrasing that the guy said, to play high quality games available only on that platform, not smaller games also available on smartphones. Like, the idea of
shot at
indie
the
games.
Switch?
No, I think it's. I mean, they're referring basically to indie games. There is the idea, right?
Fuck you.
And yeah, and it's the thing of like indie games are way more than just smartphone games, right? Like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That to me seems like very much a guy who is, like, I mean, these things are all, I don't know if they're indicative of larger company culture, but these are the things like Sony's talking
The
to
Wall
people,
Street
right?
Journal, I mean,
Yeah. And like at the start of this console generation, they spent, 20 minutes at E3, talking about indie games, right? Like that was very much a thing they did. Right after, I always bring it up, right after the Final Fantasy VII Remake gets announced, they have a big trailer for all of Devolver Digital's games. And I thought that was so cool that like they're given the same amount of time, and that's gone away, right? And so
I don't
it
understand
seems-
why any company would ever do this. This very easily pads all the timing, between your big releases. Like,
Yeah.
why would you alienate indie games? I have no fucking clue what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they're maybe in their way of thinking they still have like they're at the top of their game, so they can get away with doing something like this. But I think in the wrong one, that's going to hurt them more than help them.
Yeah, because I think it is. It was because I mean, walking into this generation, there was a lot of, especially because smartphones blew up, right? There was like, and like the Wii U wasn't doing well, so it's like, are just consoles in trouble, right? Like, will people buy a $500 box when they can play Clash of Clans on their phone? And the answer was like, yes, right? But the thing was that early on in the PS4's lifespan, they didn't have a ton of great first party, right? Like they had some games, but The Order 1886 and Infamous Second Son and a bunch of games, Drive Club, that they invested in, all sort of stumbled, but where they had a lot of help was like, hey, Resogun was like the game that people were playing the day that PS4 launched, and that was because they were specifically courting the Resogun developer to have a game made exclusively for the PlayStation on day one, and like that's the stuff that personally I love to see, right? So there was a variety, sort of like Noah said.
Of course, I mean, giving support to indies only helps everybody. I mean, I don't understand why you would ever shun them. This doesn't help you in any way.
And
Nope.
and it's not even necessarily shunning, right? Because they could say like, "Hey, we welcome them still," but like there's a difference between feeling like you're just there and you're a priority,
Yeah, but I mean, giving them some attention.
Yes,
It's not hard. Like, is it?
You would presume. I mean, that's the thing, right? Is this like, PlayStation actually has, unlike YouTube, has like a great outreach. If you look at the number of subscribers they have on their channel, it's way more than Xbox or Nintendo, right? But like, and so like they could clearly leverage that with stuff like State of Play and other things that that they could try in this more direct formatted style era. But you'll get one or two indie games in a State of Play, and you're like, no, like give them a little bit more, like have a montage, have a bunch, right? Like there's no shame in that.
Yeah, have like an indies fucking show or something like that. It was just indies. Who does that hurt?
Yeah, and I don't know, and like I said, they've had a lot of success later in this console cycle with their first party, but I think planning that as always your strategy is never good. Putting all your eggs in one basket is always a risk,
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, like I said, that is one article. So maybe they'll come out on the PS5 stage and have a bunch, but it seemingly is lining up with sort of the larger things we're hearing about them. Sony as a first party right now, which is that they're focusing very much on their own internal games and and some of their third party outreach is they're sort of just resting on their laurels a little bit, and that isn't necessarily a bad thing unless someone else is trying to play catch up, which it feels like Microsoft is, and that's where the issues could come into play. But we'll see. Like I said, outside of that, next that was sort of one of the first things. The next thing on our little docket is having to do with, one second, I was looking at the wrong thing. We're gonna talk about Shenmue 3 at E3 showed up at the PC gaming show, and at the end of it they had a little icons of platforms at the bottom, and there was PS4, there was Xbox, and there was Epic Games Store, and there was no Steam. And as is the nature of the internet, people got very mad. Right. But we haven't covered a lot of the Epic Games people being mad at stuff because largely I don't care. Right? The people that are mad, you can not support Epic and that's fine. Have at it. But I don't know if there's a lot to say.
I don't understand where this hate for Epic Store came from. Like, it's just another platform where you can get games. It's literally you're using the same computer.
From what I understand, and I don't really use these, but this is what I've seen, the biggest complaint is that it was easy for people to get their personal information stolen on there.
Yeah.
Is that actually true, or people claiming that, though?
It was a thing that there was potential security back-end problems, but there wasn't any major breaches, right? So, potentially there was more risk, but so far it hasn't panned out and people losing
so it's just people being paranoid, basically, then.
Sure.
I mean, if there was an actual issue with correctly stolen, then yeah, obviously you shouldn't trust that fucking launcher or that.
Don't save
platform.
your credit card, right, or whatever.
Yeah.
But this one's interesting. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I also think that people are mad at that because the Epic Games Store obviously isn't as developed as the Steam platform yet. So, and people don't like change generally, so they're very stuck in their ways. They want their fucking Steam achievements or whatever.
I understand that.
There's attachment to the platforms. But the thing that reason I bring this up though is because Shenmue 3 quite famously was a Kickstarter game, right? And part of the reason that they were getting on the Epic Games Store was that that they received some additional money from Epic to put it on there. But people were saying, I paid for a copy. I was planning on playing on PC. I'm going to refuse the Epic code. I'm just not going to use it, right? And so now Epic themselves are paying all the refunds rather than EastNet, the actual developers, for all of the people that want refunds that were planning that had put in their platform as being PC for when the game was going to come out.
That's a dick move, but I feel bad for Epic Store.
Well, I mean, I can see why people would be mad about this.
I can understand that.
I mean, anytime that there's a platform change, there's going to be annoyance, right? There's a certain percent of people that really wanted to play Bloodstained on the Wii U, and that's a smaller percent of people, to be sure.
Yeah,
but
rolling my eyes at those people.
Yeah, but that's sort
people
of
are just refusing to launch the game through the Epic Store. Is that?
Yeah, they're just saying if you can give me the code, I'm not going to use it. This is worthless to me. I'm boycotting the Epic.
I don't sympathize with these people. Nope, not even a little bit. Fuck that.
Yeah. But I do think it's interesting that Epic is just okay, I mean, sure, here, have the refund, right? I think that is interesting, and then also, I mean, the thing is this, I feel like the general mood around the Epic Game Store versus Steam is very different in the consumer side of things and the developer side of things, right?
Yes.
Because Steam has been infamous for the last couple of years of being incredibly difficult to talk to. You feel like you never get any support from them if you try to talk to them, right? Especially among smaller developers. And of course, the 70-30 split that we talked about when Epic first launched their store versus the 87-12 split on the Epic store. And so for a lot of developers, they're sort of I don't feel any loyalty to Steam. They've never showed me loyalty. So sure, I'll take the money and be on this other place, right? Where with the consumer side of things, they feel very much the opposite, seemingly,
But like you can see, Epic Store is showing a lot of goodwill. Like they didn't have to give people the refunds. Like it was more on the people that started the Kickstarter, the company that making Shenmue 3. They should have given out the refunds because they gave different promises.
Yeah.
But the fact that Epic Store is actually going out of their way to give refunds to people paying money out of their pocket, that shows some goodwill right there. Like I have more respect for Epic Game Store right there.
Yeah, I mean, to other developers, that's a message, right? That's the idea. Is like, hey, if you get in trouble, we'll help cover you. You won't have to pay out of your pocket for making a decision to join with us, which is smart, I think.
Right, and it's a nice gesture. And also, isn't this just like capitalism at work? Like, why wouldn't you expect the company to go over to a platform that's going to give them more money, or at least let them retain more of their hard-earned money? I don't understand why people are so fucked up about this.
Yeah.
Hey, I tried to say that same thing a long time ago.
Yeah. And I mean, and quietly this has happened with like a ton of smaller games, right? But also, I mean, it's funny because there's still a bunch of Steam games that are on the Epic Store, and like, those are exclusives, but like, you know, those don't get 20-page threads on Reddit and on, you know, Reset Era, right? Like, it's only the ones that are on the platform that people are going to have to download. Which is, I mean, that's why I wanted to bring it up, is sort of just to do a little check-in on this thing that is sort of always ongoing, because we hadn't talked about it for like 5 months, it feels like. Besides that, speaking of people being mad, we had news that it's news because nothing changed, right? Is sort of the way I would phrase it. Because we mentioned back on the E3 podcast about the lack of national decks, the lack of transferring Pokemon in Pokemon Sword and Shield. We mentioned then that people are mad. That hasn't changed. And part of the reason that it remains unchanged is that Junichi Masuda, who is the he's not the director for Sword and Shield, but he is sort of viewed as the head of the Pokemon brand at Game Freak, came out and made a statement that was sort of, I mean, we mentioned a Famitsu interview in that couple weeks back, and it sort of was saying the same things, which is like, hey, the plan is, we're still not going to change it. We feel bad about it, but like, nothing doing, right? Like, we hear you, but nothing's going to change, right? And of course, upon receiving that news, the people that were mad were not like, oh, okay. They were like, okay, well, I'm still going to be mad then, you know? You didn't change
it. Oh, they got
anything.
even madder. Like, I've been following this whole thing, like, since... It's weird, because when I first heard about this, like, I hadn't seen, like, the Treehouse live. I only saw, like, the trailer for Pokemon that they did at the Direct and everything, and I was excited and everything. But then, when I was talking to Brandon, like, back weeks ago, he said, oh, they're not going to be able to transfer Pokemon, because, like, and he told me, like, everything, all the excuses, the reasoning behind it from Masuda, saying that, oh, they wanted higher quality animations or, like, balance the game and all that. So, at first I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, that's acceptable. But after, like, digging through, like, seeing the Treehouse footage and everything, I found it it looked the same, you know? It's, like, very small, barely any difference.
Yeah.
So, I researched it. I looked online. Like, I've been seeing people talk about it. People actually made videos that took out the models from Pokemon Let's Go and Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu.
Yeah.
And they compared it to the models from X and Y, and they were legitimately the same exact models.
Sure.
So they were reusing the assets, just upgrading the textures and things like that. So once I found that out, it completely changed my perspective, and it's like I completely understand why people are pissed. And not to mention, like, the actual whole thing, they're cutting out a whole basic pillar of Pokemon, which is to collect, capture, and catch them all. Sure. So it's a completely legitimate reason why people are angry about this.
Yeah. And I think because so much now of the online discourse is about, like, the reaction and the reaction to the reaction and then the reaction, you know, it's this eternal thing of just, and there's a lot of people that are reacting in ways that, like, are completely uncalled for, right?
On both
there's always going to be
really.
extremes on both sides. Like, people are going to be mad or like unreasonably mad, and then the others are going to be unreasonably mad. That's the whole thing. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I've been following.
But I do think, sort of like you said, you know, like, the reasons that they gave, which was the animations and the balancing, right? The balancing thing we can't speak to, right? And the animations thing, right? Of course, people will there's the the infamous double kick animation that people up to that gets brought up a lot in these conversations. And I mean, in that way, I think that Game Freak has always had a problem with messaging to their hardcores, right? Like, it's just, it feels very much like, one, they're speaking to their Japanese audience, right? Because the reaction in Japan has been, like, it was initially a lot of anger, and then they gave the reasoning, and it's cooled off a little bit more than it has in the West, right? But that's also because I think that, like, there's just an inherent language barrier, and they're always, like, a week behind messaging to us, you know? Because, like, I do think that Sword and Shield, we've had a couple leaks that have been right all along the way, and there's stuff in that like I'm still really interested in, right? And I think that, like, at the end of the day, this stuff is a bummer, and but whether or not it will be game breaking will it'll be viewed in the lens of, like, if this is a deal breaker for you, that's cool. You have every right to not buy the game, but then there's going to be a percent of people that are like, this is a bummer, but let me see the rest of it, and see how that goes.
That's me right now. That's 100% me. It's a bummer. I'm bummed about it. I'm disappointed, but I'm still looking forward to the game because there's a lot to show. We don't know. There's so many things about this game that we don't know about still. We don't even know the number of Pokemon in the game, I think it's too early to really get upset and judge the game. You got to give it some time. This game could be amazing. Maybe they cut, maybe the Pokemon they leave out, people will be like, whatever. Who knows? Maybe they'll cut a bunch that will be pissed and we'll be pissed forever. But we don't know yet. It's too early to get that mad and so invested in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big change, 100%.
It
right?
definitely is.
And the day that, and like,
I understand.
Yeah, like it was literally cutting out one of the core mechanics of the game. But yeah,
yeah. But also it was a thing that, like, even I always sort of thought would have to happen someday, right? And I think that there's a percent of people that are like, oh, okay, like, this is the moment it happened, right? Because, like...
Yeah, I would agree with that. Oh, sorry, go on, finish what you were saying.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, there was going to happen someday, and I guess, like, this is that moment, but there's, it doesn't, just because you were expecting it, doesn't mean that you still can't be bummed about it.
Well, again, like, coming from, like, a game developer company, I can completely see their reasoning, like, their thought process behind it. But considering, like, this is Game Freak and it's the biggest media franchise in the world, like, bigger than Star Wars and all that jazz.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
You would think they would, in order to keep their fans happy, they would just hire extra staff to be able to do the extra work. And it's not like they have to do everything from scratch. Like I mentioned earlier, all the assets are already there. All they need to do is upgrade it.
Which I'm, like, cool with. Right, like the model's fine. Like, the idea was we're going to future-proof them so this doesn't have to happen.
Exactly. Yeah, they future-proofed them. Yeah. So like seeing Game Freak, like, make all these decisions, like, to looking into the future and making these huge changes to Pokemon. That's what really worries me. For, like, right now they're cutting out. You're not going to be able to catch half the Pokédex. What are they going to cut next time if they can't fit everything in the game right now? I mean, they already cut Mega Evolutions, Z moves, the following Pokemon sprites in the back. They cut Battle Frontier. They cut contests. They're constantly cutting content, like, each generation to go. Usually it's tolerable because they still make, like, great games. Like, they offer something new. But now it's like, Dynamax in Pokemon is not even new. It's like it's the same basic idea from Pokemon Go that they have, like, fighting Pokemon raids.
Yeah.
So it's like they're going, like, one step forward, 5 steps back, and now, like, this is the biggest blow they've dealt to Pokemon in terms of cutting content, and it's not showing any promising of getting better. That's why I'm, like, super cautious, and, like, I made the decision unless I see something that actually is worth making those sacrifices, because again, this is like the Pokemon's fans, like, this is one of their favorite things to do with the game, with the series, is collecting. So if you take that away from them, and they're so vocal about how dear it is to them, and you still, like, so acknowledge how important it is to them, and you still don't even, like, consider the idea of, like, adding a patch afterwards, after the game's been released and everything, because they can't delay it. Let's be real. They can't delay it because it has to be in line with the anime, the cards,
TV
everything.
Show and everything else.
Yeah. So, but this is like 2019, like post-launch updates and patches exist. They could easily just patch them in afterwards, and so they're just transferable. They don't have to be catchable in the game, just transferable, so everybody can have their favorites again. Right? Yeah. So to show that they're not even like considering that idea, it's like you're not really paying attention to your fans, are you? You know.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with Pokemon, it is big enough that there's many different fan bases, right? And that's the thing that's hard, right? But like this is the heart of the hardcore that would be affected by this, and they also are the loudest, right? And so that's why, I don't know if, I think that like there's some people that are like, oh, this is going to have a huge effect on sales. I don't know if it will, right? I wouldn't expect it, but like because there's 16 million players. I don't know how many people use Pokemon Bank, but I presume it's not a lot. But like at the end of the day, those people that are the heart of the hardcores are the people that oftentimes dictate the culture online and sort of the general like vibe around a game, And they are a group of people that there's been a subset of Pokemon fans that have been sort of very angry for a long time, and this was sort of just the breaking point of them letting all of that out at once. But yeah, I mean. Small glimmers of hope or fair play to them. They have been hiring on people. The thing is just that, like with any job, it takes time to hire someone on and to train them up and to get them into your company culture, right? So like, there is a chance that like this is a onboarding process, and in 2 years, or in a year, that it'll be a different situation than it is now.
I hope so, because the way things are, like. As much as it's gonna kill me because I fucking love Pokemon to death, I refuse to support that kind of thinking, and I'm not gonna get the game unless they actually show me a reason why they actually made that sacrifice, that huge sacrifice for.
Well, I think that the hugeness of the world has to be some of the reason why they made that sacrifice.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I think it's interesting that they chose animations and.
Yeah,
because if they had said wild area, I think a lot more people would be receptive, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like the reasoning, what they gave behind it just does not make any sense.
Yeah. And so, like, if they had said, like, hey, we're just trying a bunch of new things. Like, this is the first Pokemon game where there's camera control. This is the first Pokemon game that's in HD. This is the first Pokemon game where there's co-op online. And, like, I mean...
Yeah, it's not even the first Pokemon in HD because Let's Go's exists.
Well, sure. But Let's Go is it's a remake. They're not making it,
Well, but it's like they already took their first step. So, there's a lot of things. And then they have, like, the whole Project Town that they're working on. So they have not even their main team working on Pokemon Sword and Shield, which is mind-boggling to me. But,
this is their main team. That was a misquote. The thing about we're focusing on non-Pokemon stuff, that was the thing that was translations are rough online, but like
they still split their main team up. So
but like I think at the end of the day,
that town game.
Yeah.
I don't like that
town game that nobody's talking about, cares about.
Well, I mean, it's hard to care about when we haven't seen really anything.
Yeah,
from.
It's true.
From what we saw, I didn't like it that much.
I thought that town looked interesting, but that may just be me.
It can be very interesting, but we just don't know much about it.
Yeah,
but I feel like it's not a smart move to draw away from your main series, your main income, or like your biggest game series to work on a side project at the same time. Yeah. It's like, it's only 5 months left. They could go to it, like dedicate their full team afterwards, but
you know what?
It's a whole mess.
I disagree. They should split their whole team to make a side project, and that side project should be Harmonite 2. What the fuck?
Heyo.
I want my fucking sequel of Harmonite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen.
There's a lot of weird little Game Freak games that I have a soft spot for. I was playing Pocket Card Jockey on the plane ride home from like Arizona the other week, and I was like, I still like this game a lot. But yeah, so like, I mean, I think that like you said, the things like, your sort of your mind has to be changed at this moment. I think that like one of the things could just be that the game turns out to be like, there's nothing mind blowing, but it's just a really good game, right? At least for me, from my perspective, like at the end of the day, I don't think that the entire story of Pokemon Sword and Shield is written because we don't know everything, but this is definitely going to loom large over everything else going forward, and like that's just going to be the way it is.
Here's hoping they actually convince me to change my mind, which is Jesus.
Nice. My stance is just still, I think you just need to wait. Calm down and wait. See how it plays out.
I'm actually glad that they're speaking out, though, because this will convince them, show the developers that they know what the fans want. They can give it to them and make them super happy. That's all they need to do. You know?
Right. So long as it's in a constructive way. But yeah.
Yeah, because
I
if
agree
my
with that.
fans were obnoxious, if I was a game developer and some of my fans were as obnoxious as some of these fans, I might be like, I don't care about these people.
Yeah, I mean, there is
I know
stuff that's like,
that's how I
man.
make money, but like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, like,
Well, I mean, there's a certain like gauge where you have to be able to
Balance
be sensible. You
Talk
to somebody in
Yeah.
like a human way, not
In a
fucking
measured
scream
time.
all the time.
Yeah, saying stupid fucking lazy game freak, a bunch of asshole piece of shit.
Well, again, those are the
Scratch their
extremists.
butt cheeks all day, like those kind of people. It's like,
yeah, and I
calm
mean,
down.
Yeah, like
and-
I've just
know
been
that.
following like the Pokemon Twitter and like Facebook page and everything is just constantly comments. All they do is just post the hashtag bring back national
Yeah.
decks.
and that's the thing is that like, because like it's funny because like stuff like some people are calling it Dexit, which is I think is very silly.
I actually haven't seen that much, but yeah.
Yeah, but there's stuff
I think
like
it's
that.
pretty funny,
And then
actually.
like there was, once again, it's that time and place thing, right? Where like some two people had a Pokemon wedding. And they tweeted at Masuda like, look, we had a nice Pokemon wedding, and Masuda was like, congratulations. And then just in the comments it was like, we hate you, we hope you die, like bring back. And you're like, let him have a nice wedding, it's fine. We can wait till tomorrow before we start doing the hashtag again.
Yeah, those are the kind of people. It's like, come on, man, just fucking relax.
But I'm happy that we said all that stuff, but I'm also slightly annoyed because I had a locked and loaded transition, which was there were some games, like we said, Sword and Shield, we could have our minds be changed. And you know what? This got me thinking about, because this happened, and then Final Fantasy 14 had its expansion come out, and it got me thinking about like games that have comeback stories, like on the meta level, right? Like Final Fantasy 14 launched and was trash, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like universally just got very bad reviews, had a very low player count. But I mean, perhaps to the detriment of like Final Fantasy 15 and a bunch of other games, Square said, all hands on deck, we're gonna save this thing. And they did, is the most amazing thing to me, is that like now Final Fantasy, there are 4 expansions in at this point, I think. And they have seemingly a lot of people are very happy with the new expansion. But it got me thinking that like there's almost no other medium that can do that in quite the same way that video games can, right? Like you can put out a movie and that movie can be bad, and you can put out a sequel and that sequel can be better, but that original movie is still bad, right? Like it doesn't change. But with games, that is the case.
Well, technically, they could put out
it is.
a director's cut or something.
Sure, you could do it, yeah. And people say that about stuff like Blade Runner, but like it's it's a small handful. Where like with games, it's a younger medium. But I just wanted to like touch upon that a little bit and bring up some examples.
Yeah, and it's a newer thing. It's in the last decade that video games have been able to offer this. If you look back, if a game launches trash, it's going to be trash forever.
Yeah.
So.
You just have to wait for a new line of cartridges to run through to fix a bug, right? Rather than updating a patch, which has positives and negatives, because some people then feel that means that devs don't bug test as hard. But I think the one I want to lead off with is perhaps, I mean, it's the literal biggest game in the world right now. Fortnite was this. In a really wild way, because one, it had multiple things, right? Fortnite was announced back in 2011. Which is wild, right? This is Epic when they're still at Microsoft, still in the middle of making Gears, and they say we're gonna do this weird game where at daytime you build forts and at nighttime zombies come in, right?
Yeah,
and then we heard,
game.
And then we heard nothing for 4 years, except for like contractors in the game being like, "This isn't a game. Like, I don't think this will ever come out," right? And then it kind of does. It's this weird, early access game on PlayStation, which normally they don't do. And then suddenly they're like, hey, PUBG's pretty cool, let's put in this thing. And even when they put out the Battle Royale mode, it's like, okay, this is a pretty neat alternative that's free to PUBG. But then, like, they just kept updating, like, every week. Here's a new gun, here's a new thing, here's another thing. And by, like, Season 3, it became this fully featured game that just blew up. And is still, the biggest game in the world. And I think it's crazy that this game that, like, for a long time was my reference for a game that was in development hell turned it around like that,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Did they actually release, like, the main mode that we're focusing on?
Yeah, you can still get Save the World is the funniest thing.
Yeah.
But
it seemed cool, honestly. It seemed like a kind of a cool idea.
Yeah. And
so you were asking about other games that have been like
sure, yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, because I have good examples too.
Okay.
The one example I would kind of bring up, even though I haven't played the game, I've heard positive things about it afterwards. No Man's Sky.
Yes,
I feel like it was like universally trashed in the beginning. It obviously promised too much, and there was a huge fucking hype train behind it.
Yeah,
that obviously fucking got it off the rails. But I feel like I've heard like a lot of good things about it. After a while, like it's been rehabilitated.
Yeah.
I mean, thing is, they already took a huge blow. So it's
but I mean, I guess I don't know if it's just because the conversation has calmed down a bit and people have actually gotten a chance to play it without those hate goggles on or whatever.
Sure.
But I imagine they did something to fix it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really interesting one because, like you said, I mean, the arc of Sean Murray as this guy, right? Like, who's the main developer, like, that would be on stage, is that, like, No Man's Sky showed up, no one knows what it was. Who is Hello Games? Oh, they made Joe Danger, and then, like, there's this insane space exploration game, right? And sort of, like, I mean, he's given interviews now, where he's just like, it got out of hand super fast, right? Like we were a 5-person team. We didn't have a PR manager. We didn't have any of this other stuff. So I was just doing interviews in a way that was irresponsible. And like, I own up to that. Like I was saying things and thinking they would totally work when like I should have been more disciplined, because when that game came out, it wasn't everything that people sort of wanted it to be. But what they did do, to their credit, is he went offline for like a year. Just he apologized. He said, we're going to keep working on this. Then he went radio silent, and then just every so often, every couple months, they would have a big update, and they would add in a feature, and they would add in multiplayer, and they would add in building, and they would add in all this other stuff. And now No Man's Sky it's sort of the game that like I think a lot of people wanted it to be, which I mean, 2 years after the fact is still brutal, but there's a lot of games that never do that at all, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like that game still kind of has a dark mark on it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
And
but,
I mean...
hopefully.
I mean,
like,
and they sort
people
of learned.
think more charitably about it.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, they learned, because we had that Game Awards game announced from them that's like way smaller in scope, just like a little narrative co-op game. And they're like, we're going to make smaller games. We learned our lesson. And I think that that's respectable, owning up to it.
Right.
Brandon, you said you had one?
I do, and it falls in similar lines where, that it's almost like the same thing that happened with No Man's Sky, I guess. I don't know if it was a bigger extent, but Halo, the Master Chief Collection, is a good example of that. I mean, when this game launched, people were excited about this, right? Like, people were excited about this game. You being able to play all the Halo games. I think it's 1 through 4. All together on one disc, on playing all these classic maps and everything, online with your friends, and the game launched, and it was terrible. Matchmaking was awful.
Yeah, it was a mess.
The online it didn't work worth shit. It was glitchy. It was not. Lag was awful. It was not a good time. It was just not good. But they didn't stop. They didn't just leave it. That game, they worked there props to 343, because they worked really fucking hard to make that game what people expected. The problem is a lot of people jumped off ship. They were gone. I don't think it's a shame. Maybe with it being launched on PC now, maybe it'll get some another life here. But yeah, I mean, props to them, because they worked their asses off to keep trying, just keep putting out patches to make the game smoother, to make matchmaking better. And they added more games to the game too, Nobody, they didn't have to do that.
Yeah. Like Reach is getting added, a bunch of other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. They added ODST as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all free. All of it.
Yeah.
If you had the game, it was free. They added 2 extra Halo games to it. And I don't know. I think big props to them, because, they didn't have to do any of that, but they did, and now the game is a lot better. It's what people expected. So, I think if you were interested and you were disappointed by Master Chief Collection when it first came out, and as you should have been, because I was too, you go back and try it. Tell your friends, play some Halo.
Because that game, like, you sort of say like, oh, it's just a collection of games, but like having separate multiplayer servers, balancing all of them, remaking some of these games from the ground up, like that was a huge undertaking. And they said it was too big. All right, like they either should have rolled it out differently or waited. They, you know, but sort of it's a thing that they, you know, the thing is too, like these developers work very hard on it. And the larger company like lets them keep doing that, right? Because there's a lot of times that like a game will come out, will flop, will be bad, and the larger people will say, "Okay, we're just going to move you to a different team, right?
Yeah.
Just you go over here and we're doing
next. Leave that game alone. Next."
Yeah. I mean, Anthem's that game, right? Anthem, they had a ton of post-launch support. It launches bad. They say, okay, well, we're gonna have a skeleton crew of like 20 guys, and everyone else is working on the next Dragon Age, right? And so now, like all these things that this roadmap they laid out. They're not hitting the days. They're not. It's looking, you know, like a compromised version of what they were promising. Like, but that's what happens when you have a fifth of the team that you were planning on working on a game. If I could do one more, this is one that I only found out recently. This has shocked me. The Battlefront 2 game that like got the whole loot box thing started. Because that game came out and everyone was super mad. But like once again, it's that thing where like even if Big Bad EA is bad, like those dudes at DICE were just like, no, like they put out a bunch of free map packs, they put out a bunch of new characters, all of it's free. They've completely reworked the microtransaction system so you don't have to pay for any of it basically if you've been, you know, like it's now a Battlefront 2 that like can be a respectable sequel to that old game rather than this, you know, huge blight of a thing that just, you know, got the US government involved and was a mess and like got Disney at EA yelling at them, right? Like, and I mean, there's, you know, obviously for a lot of people, it's too late. They've already been burned, but there's like a fan base of Star Wars fans that's like, this is the best Star Wars games we've had in a long time. And I'm super happy it exists. And so like, that's cool.
Yeah. I didn't know about that either.
Can I shout out one more? I don't want to talk about it in length, but I just want to shout out it.
Go for it.
Sea of Thieves.
That too, yeah. I played that game, and they've added a lot, so I can vouch for that.
Yeah.
But, you know, while you're waiting for those patches, those updates... Oh, sorry, does anyone else have anything else that they want to shout out?
No. Nope. All right. I'm sad that they canceled any DLC for Mass Effect Andromeda. So it's kind of like that gone wrong. Like, they didn't really put in the time to fix it, yeah.
I heard The Division is also a good one, where it just got better.
Ubisoft in general. Yeah. Rainbow Six Siege also did a similar thing.
For Honor as well. Got a lot of post-launch support.
Yeah. But while we're waiting for those updates to come, why not play some games on the Steam Summer Sale? Which, if you're listening to this on Monday when it goes live, is ending tomorrow. Get on this, because we're going to shout out some games that are currently marked down in price that are worth checking out.
Better fucking hurry.
Better hurry. Brandon, do you want to start?
Sure. I gotta. So, hold on. I gotta remember what game I was gonna. Okay, I remember now. So I was looking at the games that are on sale. Lots of good ones. But there's one that I love. This is actually 3 games, so it's a trilogy, and I can't recommend it enough. It's called the Zero Escape Trilogy. These games are visual novel type games. They're on sale. It's like 50% off right now for all 3 of them. I think it's like $40-something or something like that, maybe. It's 3 games you get. I think it might be cheaper than that. It might be like $25. I don't even remember what price it is. Anyway, it's worth the money. I can tell you that. But yeah, it's a Zero Escape Trilogy. It's 3 different games. Originally, the first one was $9.99. Second one was
Virtue's Last Reward.
What the hell was it? Zero something.
Zero Escape.
They had weird. The Virtue's Last Reward is the third one. They have very weird names, but anyway, they're all together. They're a series. They go in order. Basically, long story short, with the type of game it is, it's a visual novel where you make choices along the way. You solve puzzles, and it's very much like Saw. A bunch of people trapped in one spot, and you're trying to get out. You have to solve puzzles. People die along the way. There's multiple endings. There's different choices you can make, and it's very fun. Good cast of characters.
I remember you talking to me about that. Oh, I definitely want to pick that up then.
And it's like Escape Room the game as well. because I know people are super into escape rooms nowadays. They're a lot of fun. This game was doing it before. Every puzzle is kind of like an escape room.
Yeah.
It's
like it'll be like you have like 9 like currency and you have to like balance it out in this way where only if someone has more than like 2 can they walk through this door, and you have 5 people, so someone's gonna have to die unless you can figure out this puzzle, like that type of stuff.
Yeah, there's traps. If you do the wrong thing, somebody could die. You got to make the right decisions. Sometimes you're on a time limit. It gets a little kind of stressful. It's really fun. It's a blast, man. People should play this series. There's really
with things that have branching paths, it's oftentimes like a thing of like, do I want to go back and see like how it splits, right?
Yeah.
They have a really good system in these games to make it easy to go back and sort of see how things could have gone. And this
is only on the remakes. On the original DS one, they didn't have this, but they definitely, in the remakes, the re-releases, it's way better.
Yes, which makes it super nice because like, and it doesn't feel, not to give too much away, but like they have it work in universe enough that you don't feel like you're just like you're losing the narrative. Like there's still a connective tissue there that makes it fun.
Yeah, you can go back and just pick the exact spot. You'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to pick the exact spot where the path got split before, and let me do this other route. And you can get all the different endings. It's pretty easy. So it's not like you have to play the whole game and sit through a bunch of text you've already read. Which is such a relief. But it's real good, man. If you're a fan of, I would say if you're a fan of games like Phoenix Wright, or you're a fan of games like Danganronpa, definitely this would be up your alley, 100%. Give it a shot. It's great.
I've played those games and I can also vouch they're super good. Yeah. So like, very cool. Very cool. Also, I love that there's a collection on PC. That's because they were on the DS originally and obviously not around as much anymore. So next up, Ills, what do you got?
Right. So I was going to recommend a game I played pretty recently. Gris.
Yeah,
it's on PC right now. It's like 30% off.
Nice.
It's a platformer. It's a wonderful platformer, I should say. With an amazing soundtrack. It's very evocative. It's very heartfelt. I mean, I feel like this game, I know Celeste gets a lot of love. I feel like this game rivals Celeste in a lot of ways.
Sure.
So, I mean, I played this in February, and I still think about it. Like, I bought the soundtrack immediately afterwards. It's just like so uplifting. I don't know. It's a fantastic game. Like, everybody should play this game. I've mentioned it a few times, like to you guys here in the Discord. I don't think anybody's bought it yet, but I'm still gonna keep trying. And it's pretty short, but it's very good.
Yeah, and if you watch a trailer for this game, like,
oh yeah, it's gorgeous. Holy shit.
It's maybe the prettiest game. Like, just like it, with both music and with visuals, just like, good lord, what an aesthetic. So like, yeah, I mean, that's one that's like, and it's also not super long, right?
Right. Which very, very solid platforming, like elements, like puzzle elements. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because sometimes with games like this, I feel like it overstays their welcome. But like, from what I've heard of Gris, like it knows not to stretch itself out and to play to its strengths.
Yeah,
which is cool.
It's concise, but it's effective because it's concise.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people thought about Journey just because the way the girls' legs are in that game. Like, they're both little stubs. But like in that same way, like Journey's 3 hours, but like I think about Journey way more than games I spent 80 hours on, you know?
Yeah, it's a very apt comparison. This and Journey will go well together.
Yeah. That's super cool. I forgot that would be on sale at this point, so I'm interested now. Noah, what do you got?
Okay, so for me, this is a big AAA title, but Monster Hunter World is for 50% off. I played the shit out of that game. I've always been a big fan of the series, obviously. But if you've never played Monster Hunter before and you've been looking into getting maybe the series or anything, this is like the perfect game to play to ease you in to what Monster Hunter is. And the game is so beautiful and so immersive that even if you like just like to venture out into like these environments and like fight giant monsters, this is a great game for that. Like,
yeah,
I 100% recommend it. And one other quick shout out I want to give out is Enter the Gungeon. That is indie game.
Good shout.
Yeah.
Why? Yeah, who said you could have two?
I'm doing quick ones. I'm not going to freaking elaborate explanations of what they are. Yeah, really fun indie game, really charming, great multiplayer. That's also 50% off, so there you go.
That is a good shout out.
It's an amazing game. I fucking love that game.
Yeah, Gungeon's super good.
Yeah, that's really good.
I play it with Brandon a lot.
In a similar vein of the roguelikes, I'm going to shout out Slay the Spire.
I was actually considering that one too.
I think still 50% off. It is
really good.
Really good. It's a roguelike. You climb up this thing, you fight monsters, and every time you beat a set of monsters, you get a selection of 3 cards really to add to your deck. And so every time there's a really nice element of just like, okay, I'm going to go for this type of build. I'm going to go for this type of build. I'm going to do this and that. And it's a great game to like, just you get home at the end of the day, do a run of Slay the Spire. I quietly racked up like 120 hours in this game last year just because like it's so easy to do one more. Just like let me do one more run. And so I think that would be a really good fit.
Yeah, I feel the same about Enter the Gungeon. Fucking I racked in like 150 hours in that game. No more, like almost 200 now.
Yeah. Roguelikes are good for that. They're very much like just one more types of genres. But yeah, so I mean all those games, I don't feel bad about any of those things. If you pick any of those, you're gonna get a winner, which is fun. But you know what has both winners and losers? The list!
The list!
Follow along in the paste bin below.
Hey.
Last week, after several attempts, we got to Uncharted Drake's Fortune, which was right above Kid Icarus Uprising. I'll never forget where it's placed because of Moosey's reaction after the fact.
42.
That's a good spot for it. I listened to the episode. I was not there, but I was cool with where you guys put it.
Yeah, 42 out of a total of 116 games, by the way. So just to give you a sense of scale of what we're working with the list here, it's gotten big. We're dealing with a big boy now.
I have to do more Rankermanias.
Oh boy, just bloat the number up. But Noah, since you're not here normally to add games outside of the context of the Game Club, which you can listen to every other Thursday in this podcast feed, why don't you bring a game for the list this week?
I'd love to. I want to bring in Fire Emblem Path of Radiance.
Oh
my god, more Fire Emblem games.
I was just thinking
It's
about
only
this
like
game.
It's the one that was on the GameCube that introduced Ike, the best lord.
Not the best.
But yeah, like I said, it's a typical Fire Emblem game. It's actually is the first one that came to like a home console. I think no, was there Super Nintendo ones?
There was there was NES and Super Nintendo ones.
Yeah, I guess so. But I guess the first CD-based console. Anyway. Yeah, it's the first one that had like the 3D models with like a huge visual upgrade, and they nailed this. The story in general is so amazing. All the characters are very memorable, and like going back to the story, it's like they have some really deep shit. Like all the cutscenes are really great too. The gameplay is very solid. They've taken like pointers from previous games, and they've like improved on them a little bit. And yeah, overall, it's like a really great experience. It's like my favorite Fire Emblem title.
Interesting.
Yeah, this game is really good. Like surprisingly, really good. Like way better than I thought it was gonna be when I started playing it. I also played this in February, same month I played this. And yeah, like I was surprised at how dark the story is.
Oh, yeah.
It was very.
It's like a weird twist. Like, what's the word I want? Not twist. It's not foreshadowing either. It's like what's the word I'm looking for? It's like they're trying to talk about racism in a sense, but not being directly like between actual human races. It's more like between beasts and humans. Yeah, like the Laguz.
I like how One Piece does with fishmen.
Yeah, the fish. Yeah, like exactly. That's a really good example. Like between the fishmen and the humans.
Like, they clearly intended to sort of tie into the idea of bigotry and all that other stuff.
And it's really, really well thought out. It was really good.
That and like the relationship of Ike and his father. And, like, that whole
rivalry between the Black Knight.
The Black Knight. The whole arc with the bird people in the forest.
The Herons,
that got massacred. Oh my god. It's really strong.
It was,
and it jumps from like segment to segment. And it's like you start out with one story, and it just evolves and expands to these multiple branches. Like that's happening all at the same time. It's like really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it has these multi-map levels that are pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Both with like different objectives. Sometimes you have to defend a certain amount of terms. Sometimes you have to route. Sometimes you have to claim the throne. It's like a lot of variety there.
It's been a long time since I played this game. But this is like a Fire Emblem game that I have like really fond memories about because this is coming from a point in my life where I think it was my sophomore year of high school, and I was working like all the time. I would work weekends, I would work nights after school. I was working a lot, but every single free time, all my free time was, school, work, Fire Emblem. Like I would sacrifice sleep to play this game.
Yeah.
Like, I picked it up and it was just what I needed because I was kind of getting just burnt out and depressed kind of at the time. And I picked this game up and it was just like an escape for me.
Your right game at right time.
Yeah.
Right.
So like this game holds a lot of fond memories for me. But and it's been a long time since I played it, but I definitely remember just being really into everything about it, the graphics, the art style, the story, just the strategy. This was my first this was the first Fire Emblem game I owned.
Yeah,
right.
And I still own it today, which makes me very happy because try to find this game.
It's hard.
It's an expensive ass game.
Yep.
So I'm glad I still own it. This and the sequel on the Wii,
Radiant
both
Dawn.
very expensive ass games.
Yeah.
Right.
It's interesting because sort of like among the Fire Emblem fan base there is sort of they view it in like a pre and post Awakening world, right? Because Awakening changed a whole lot and it sort of changed the popularity of the series, right?
Saved the franchise. Really.
It literally did save the franchise, but like this was sort of looking back almost feels like the swan song of that more old style of Fire Emblem, right? Like there's less customization, but there's more of a strong narrative focus with like individual characters having arcs, right?
And you don't have fucking kids.
Yeah.
No children
that come from the future. And also the characters have feet.
It's true.
It doesn't have Lucina.
It has Ike.
But it has
Titania.
Mia and Nephany and
Nephany, yeah.
Alencia.
It's got good girls. I'm not saying it doesn't. It's just Lucina.
Just gotta give her a shout out.
It doesn't have Lindis either. I mean, if we're going down that route.
There you go. Now you're feeling me.
So, all that having been said, Noah, where would you like to put it on the list?
Oh boy.
It's hard.
Yeah. Well, as usual, I start from the bottom. I work my way up.
Okay.
I'm hitting the first couple of walls around the 27 mark.
Okay. Sonic Mania, Donkey Kong Country 2, around that space.
But, of course, personally, because I love the game so much, I want to go up.
My eyebrows went up when you mentioned too.
Of course.
I can tell you what else goes up when I talk about this game, but let's not go there.
Whoa! For me, I was thinking around that same area. I was thinking like maybe above Sonic Mania, but below Donkey Kong Country 2, to be honest.
Is it better than Awakening?
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
think it is.
I don't know. I mean, that's the problem. I think Awakening should be higher. Is the problem?
No.
Yeah.
Well, not.
Yeah.
Well, on the list, yeah, it should be higher, but not higher than Path of Radiance.
I agree that it should be higher, but I still think Path of Radiance is better.
I mean, personally, I like Awakening more, but also, like, I think Awakening's better than like maybe everything above Donkey Kong. Below Donkey Kong Country 2 is the problem too.
So should we push it up a little further then?
No, because I think I would personally put Awakening above it, but I think that they would be neck and neck. I think in my mind they're very comparable, but just by a little bit. I found myself wanting to replay Awakening a little bit more, but we're not arguing that anyways.
Yeah.
I would still put it like right below Donkey Kong Country 2, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think that's a very solid place for it.
I think it's a pretty good spot for it. I'm just looking.
I definitely would put it above Awakening, though. just wanted to put that out there.
I mean, that's going to be a thing
really-
that's going to be like a
there's a-
6-person argument.
There's a really solid pack of games right here, though.
Yeah, that's why. Like,
think
that's
it's
why I
hard to
said
look
like.
past some of them. here.
Again, personally, I would put it a little higher, but these are like a solid
100%
block.
It's above Super Mario Brothers. Dude,
Yeah.
Yes. I mean,
Personally,
I
it's above
100% want
Okami.
to put it above Smash Bros. Melee.
It's
But
above
they-
Okami.
Yeah.
It's above Borderlands.
Yeah, above Psychonauts for me.
Yeah.
Above Melee.
It's above Smash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's above Mania.
Yeah, it is for me, yeah.
Donkey Kong Country is like a solid wall. Like, it should be a little higher, but because
should be a lot higher.
like I want
Yes, it's
I
a
want
very
to put
solid
Path of
wall.
Radiance like above Earthbound, Left 4 Dead 2, Smash Bros. Brawl, and Pokemon Yellow. But
You know what? I would follow you there.
yeah.
I would follow you there. Yeah.
I wouldn't.
So
put
what?
it
Just
above
under
Donkey Kong
Octopath?
No, I want Octopath lower, so don't even get me started with Octopath.
Yeah, that might be a different conversation. I don't know. I like Earthbound a whole lot. I think I would still put Earthbound above it just because, like,
Yeah.
for me personally, the Earthbound story I think about so much. I think about that world a lot.
I have a
Yeah, I
lot
think
more
Earthbound
affection
could
for.
honestly maybe go higher on this list, but so could fucking Donkey Kong Country 2.
Yeah.
Every fucking.
I mean, re-rank is coming soon, so.
No, it's not.
Well, isn't it? Oh no, yeah.
It might be.
We were considering an idea.
We're gonna have a
but yeah.
conversation about it.
Yeah.
Off mic, I think.
Wild card. We might throw one out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw one out there because the old one got lost, especially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the problem is we need. I was wondering, hoping the Seth would be awake just so we would have an odd number at least. But
I like the Donkey Kong Country 2 wall. I like that. I like it a lot.
yeah, me too.
I just want to get past it.
Why don't we just have a re-rank that's just moving this section of games all up? Like it's Earthbound, Donkey Kong, Fire Emblem, and the other Fire Emblem.
Yeah,
just
then
that's the whole
Octopath
Rankamania.
just move them all above Octopath. It'll sort
No,
sort
but then
itself
no.
out.
Octopath has to come down.
Well, yeah,
that
you
is-
take this chunk, you move it above Octopath.
No, but it has to be lower than other games, like Okami.
Yeah, I would
maybe
put- I would
put
maybe
Octopath
above
chunk.
Okami.
You start out
Maybe above
Okami.
Okami.
It's in that space though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But until then, I would put it below Donkey Kong.
yeah, same.
God, it's so annoying because if you put it lower than where you want it initially, it's gonna take so
Yeah.
long to move everything.
That's
around.
why, like,
No,
I
yeah, but
if
here's
it's
the thing,
just,
I don't know if I'd even put it above like Left 4 Dead or Brawl
I
or
would.
Pokemon.
I would
would.
as well.
I
That's the
wouldn't.
thing. Is like it's
I would
like,
definitely put it above Brawl.
yeah,
Nah.
I would.
I wouldn't see. That's the thing. I wouldn't put it above any game above Donkey Kong Country 2. Except
That's
for
just
BB.
because of Donkey Kong.
Yeah, that's the
Country.
thing.
No, because
Yeah.
I
No,
would,
no, he's saying
no,
even
I
Donkey
would
Kong
just
wasn't there.
said to you, I wouldn't put it above this. I wouldn't put it above Left 4 Dead. I wouldn't put it above Earthbound. I wouldn't put it
Well,
above Brawl.
I
definitely
heartily
wouldn't put it above
disagree.
Pokemon.
I disagree. How about that?
Well, that's fair. But I'm telling you what I think.
Well, I'm telling you right.
It's not
Fair.
just Donkey Kong. Every game above it, I wouldn't put it above it.
All right. So we
So
done?
what do we do?
So I don't know.
I mean, I don't know what to do.
I'm still
Um,
stuck under Octopath, but should we settle somewhere in the middle between Octopath and Donkey Kong?
I mean, the
Oh,
thing is,
No.
yeah, I don't know. The thing is, if it's above Donkey Kong and Earthbound, I wouldn't put it above Pokemon. Would be the next stopping point for me. I like Red
Okay.
and Blue a lot.
Okay, fair.
I wouldn't put it above any of those games.
I mean, I'd follow you above Brawl.
Same. So you
But
willing to
Earthbound
take that
is
sidestep,
soft.
Will? So we can move it? Settle?
So like my thing is a rank now I think is worth less than a re-rank. You know, you get a re-rank on a fewer instance. So in my brain, we got if we rectify Fire Emblem Awakening, right? And we rectify Donkey Kong and maybe Earthbound down the line, we don't want to have to also rank and waste another re-rank on Path of Radiance. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's what's
Yeah.
It
didn't
would
I
be
say
fine where it is.
that?
But
I feel like I said that already. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean,
Don't.
so I mean, it's hard because the question is, do you go off the list that you are envisioning down the line, or the list as it is now? I think in this instance, I will go for the list down the line, and I would put it below Pokemon.
Don't
Yay!
do that. That's not how I run
I agree.
my life.
Let's do it.
All right. Plus, Noah's not here often. Let's give it to him.
You know what? I'm good with it.
Fire Emblem.
I'm surprised you think Fire Emblem Awakening should be higher. Because do you think Valkyria should be higher?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Okay. It's gonna be a long fucking saga then.
Yeah,
It might be a multi-year thing. Please be
Fucking
prepared.
Donkey Kong at number 27, man. I'm gonna go suicide watch. Jeez Louise.
Golly gee willikers. By the way, Noah, that broke. You had an even 10 games on the list. Now you're at 11.
Oh, I gotta come back more often.
That's true. Free yourself from the night shift. That was the list. That was the podcast for this week. No, it's like I said, you're not here often. You can get the final phrase if you would like it. But until then, I want to do some plugs, if that's okay. Of course, if you made it this far in the podcast, we want to hope that you would show up for the next one and for future ones. If you want to go back and listen to old episodes, you can do that by subscribing to your podcast service of choice, to us on your podcast service of choice. Recently, we had an episode of The Game Club, as we mentioned earlier, about Skull Monkeys, another Noah pick. Very much Noah-centric this episode. That was a very interesting... There's a lot of wild stuff going on in that video game. And also, we had I think the archive is dead, but we had a set of E3 bets during during E3 this year. Part of the stakes was that whoever wins gets to choose a game for the others to play. I won. So I think in the next week or so, I'm going to tell Brandon what game of choice that I would like him to play, looking at stuff. And if he would like to stream it, he could on twitch.tv/Up Supercast. I'll try not to make it a long game, so it won't be the Xenoblade situation for him. So maybe that'll happen then. If not, just subscribe to us there. Follow us there so you can know whenever we do go live. You can also make sure you won't miss it by going to twitter.com/JumpUpSupercast, where you get posts about us going live everywhere and anywhere. We also have a Facebook and an Instagram if you would like to go there. Brandon makes silly pictures. But all that having been said, once again, I want to thank you for listening. And now, Noah, your final phrase.
For those looking to try out new games, now there's the chance with the summer Steam sale. If you're like me and hesitant on trying out new games because of either pricing or you don't know if it's going to be the right game for you, take advantage of the sales. Go wild.
With that one day that you're going to get this advice on.
Yeah, that's why I said it. Yeah, they only have one day left, so I figured, push them. They need a little push. I know the feeling.